Hello and welcome back. It's Sunday and we're going to continue the Wizard of Oz. So you remember that they're leaving Emerald City now to go find the Good Witch, and so that Dorothy can go right back home again. Let's continue. Here it is, Chapter 18, The Fighting Trees. The next morning, Dorothy and her friends said goodbye to the guardian of the gate and left for the Emerald City. The first day's journey was through the green fields and bright flowers that stretched around the Emerald City on every side. That night they slept on the grass and looked up at the velvet sky filled with bright stars. In the morning they traveled until they came to a forest. The forest was very thick, and there seemed to be no way around it. So they looked for a place where it would be the easiest to get through the forest. The Scarecrow discovered a big tree with wide-spreading branches that would allow everyone to pass underneath. But just as he came under the first branches, they bent down and twined around him. The next minute, he was lifted from the ground and thrown through the air. This did not hurt the Scarecrow, but it surprised him, and he looked dizzy when Dorothy picked him up.
"There's another space between the trees,"
called the Lion.
"Let me try it first," said the Scarecrow, "for it doesn't hurt me to be thrown around."
He walked up to another tree, but immediately its branches grabbed him and tossed him back again.
"This is very strange," said Dorothy. "What shall we do?"
"The trees seem to have made up their minds to flight us and stop our journey,"
said the Lion.
"Let me give me a try."
Sorry.
"Let me give this a try,"
said the Tin Man. He put his axe on his shoulder and walked up to the first tree that had thrown the Scarecrow in the air. When the branch bent down to grab him, the Tin Man chopped it in half. The tree began shaking in pain, and the Tin Man walked safely under it.
"Come on," he shouted to the others. "Hurry up now."
They all ran forward and passed under the tree without being hurt. The other trees did not try to stop him. So they decided that only the first row of trees could bend down their branches, and that these were the police force of the forest, who tried to keep strangers out. The travelers walked to the edge of the forest. Then, to their surprise, they saw a high wall, which seemed to be made out of china. It was smooth, like the surface of a dish, and much higher than their heads.
"What will we do now?"
said Dorothy.
"We will make a ladder so that we can climb over the wall,"
said the Tin Man. While the Tin Man was making a ladder from wood which he found in the forest, Dorothy lay down and slept. She was very tired from the long walk. The Lion also curled up to sleep, and Toto lay beside them. The Scarecrow watched the Tin Man while he worked and said to him,
"I cannot figure out why this wall is here or what it is made of." "Rest your brains and do not worry about the wall,"
answered the Tin Man.
"When we have climbed over it, we will know what it is on the other side."
After a while, the ladder was finished. It looked clumsy, but the Tin Man was sure it was strong and would serve the purpose of getting them over the china wall. The Scarecrow woke Dorothy, Toto, and the Lion. He told them that the ladder was ready. The Scarecrow climbed up the ladder first, but he was so awkward that Dorothy had to follow close behind to keep him from falling off. When he got his head over the top of the wall and could see, he said,
"Oh my!"
"Go on," Dorothy, said Dorothy. So the Scarecrow climbed further up and sat down on the top of the wall, and Dorothy looked over and cried, "Oh my!" just like the Scarecrow had done. Then Toto came up and immediately began to bark, but Dorothy told him to be quiet. The lion climbed up the ladder next, and then the Tin Man. Both of them said, "Oh my!" as soon as they looked over the wall. When they were all sitting in a row on the top of the wall, they looked down and saw a very strange sight. Before them was a great stretch of land. The floor of the land was as smooth and shining as white as the bottom of a big plate. Shattered around them, or should I say scattered around them, were many houses made entirely of china and painted in bright colors. These houses were very small. The biggest one reached only as high as Dorothy's waist. There were also tiny barns painted red with china fences around them. There were cows, sheep, horses, and pigs, all made of china. But strangest of all were the people who lived in this unusual country. There were milkmaids and shepherdesses who wore red and yellow blouses and skirts with golden spots. There were princesses with beautiful dresses of silver, gold, and purple. The shepherds were dressed in short pants with pink, yellow, and blue stripes on them. Their shoes had golden buckles. There were princes and jeweled crowns of ermine robes, and were also clowns in ruffled gowns with round red spots on their cheeks and tall pointed caps. But the strangest thing of all was that all these people were made of china. Even their clothes were made of china. And they were so small that the tallest one was no higher than Dorothy's knee. At first, none of the little people even looked at the travelers. One little purple china dog, with an extra large head, came to the wall and barked at them. "How can we get down from the other side of the wall?" asked Dorothy. The ladder was so heavy they couldn't pull it up, so the Scarecrow fell off the wall. Then the others jumped down on him so the hard floor would not hurt their feet. They were very careful not to land on his head and get the pins stuck in their feet. When they were all safely down, they picked up the Scarecrow and patted his straw back into shape. "We must cross this strange place in order to get to the other side," said Dorothy, "for we really must continue going south." They began walking through the country of the China people. The first thing they came up to was a China milkmaid milking a China cow. As they came near, the cow gave a kick, and over went the stool, the pail, and even the milkmaid herself. Everything fell on the china ground with a great chatter. Dorothy was shocked to see that the cow had broken its leg off, and that the pail was lying in several small pieces. Even the milkmaid had a nick in her left elbow. "See what you've done!" cried the milkmaid angrily. "My cow has broken her leg, and now I must take her to the mender shop and have it glued together again. What do you mean by coming here and fighting my cow?" "I'm really sorry," said Dorothy. "Please forgive us." But the milkmaid was too angry to answer. She picked up the leg and led the cow away. The poor animal limped on 3 legs. Dorothy felt very bad about what had happened. We must be very careful here, she said kindly to the Tin Man, or we may hurt these little people, so they will never get over it. A little further on, Dorothy met a beautifully dressed princess. The princess stopped short when she saw the strangers, and she started to run away. Dorothy wanted to see more of the princess, so she ran after her, but the China girl cried out, "Don't chase me! Don't chase me!" And she had such a frightened voice that Dorothy stopped and asked, "Why not?" "Because," answered the princess, "if I run, I may fall down and break myself." "But you could be mended, couldn't you?" asked Dorothy. "Ah, yes, but one is never as pretty before as mended, you know," answered the princess. "I suppose not," said Dorothy. "Now there is a joker, one of our clowns," continued the China woman, "who is always trying to stand on his head. He has broken himself so many times, 3 times, that he is mended in 100 places and doesn't look at all pretty. Here he come now. You can see for yourself." Indeed, a jolly little clown came walking by, and Dorothy could see that in spite of his pretty clothes of red, yellow, and green, he was completely covered in cracks. It was clear that he had been mended in many places. Dorothy felt sad for the poor little clown. Then she turned to the beautiful princess and said, "You are so lovely. I am sure I could love you dearly. I am going back to Kansas. Won't you let me carry you back in my basket, so when we get back home, I can stand you on M's mantel shelf?" "That will make me very, very unhappy," answered the China princess. "You see, here in our country, we live happy, and we can talk and move around as we please. But whenever any of us are taken away, our joints at once stiffen. We can only stand straight and look pretty. Of course, that is all that is expected of us when we are on the mantel shelf and cabinets and living room table. Our lives are much more fun here in our own country." "I understand," said Dorothy, "and I would not want to make you unhappy for anything in the world. So I will just say goodbye." "Goodbye," said the princess. They walked carefully through the China country. Little animals and people scampered out of their way, afraid that they would be broken. Soon they reached the other side of the country and came to another China wall. It was not as high as the first one, and by standing on the lion's back, they all managed to scramble to the top. Then the lion gathered his legs under him and jumped the wall. Just as he did this, he upset a china house with his tail and smashed it to pieces. "That was too bad," said Dorothy, "but I think we were lucky that we did these people so little harm. They are all so delicate."
"They certainly are," said the Scarecrow, "and I'm thankful I am made of straw and cannot be hurt easily. There are worse things in the world than being a scarecrow."
"They must be so afraid of outsiders," said Dorothy. "They must have been treated badly by those who did not understand them." Tin Man nodded in agreement as they took their last look at the China wall before they lay a gloomy forest. The end. Actually, not the end. Next Sunday, we're going to probably finish the end. I'll see you then. Thank you.